Hey everybody, welcome to week 3 of CIT 15. I went out with some coworkers after our curriculum meeting, and so now it is late and I'm trying to rush this video so that it's up in time to release the module. Regardless, this is week 3. We're talking about chapter 3, which is all about the internet. So a lot of stuff that you probably take for granted about the internet, or I shouldn't say take for granted, you just have seen and have never cared about. But you know, maybe don't know why it is that way. Top level domains, DNS, stuff like that. You'll see it throughout the chapter, but you'll also see it in my lecture videos. There's a quiz on chapter 3, as always. And your discussion this week is about net neutrality. So net neutrality is the concept that you pay for an internet connection to an ISP. And so ideally, that ISP, Comcast, AT&T, whoever it is you have, whoever you get your internet service through, they should act and have always acted in a way that is neutral to the sites that you visit. In other words, because they're just connecting you to the internet and they don't own the backbone of the internet, they don't own anything else, but kind of like, if somebody owned the streets, like the residential streets in your neighborhood, like even if you were to order Amazon packages, which have nothing to do with that company, that Amazon truck is eventually going to have to get onto the residential roads in your neighborhood. Now, in this case with the ISP, you're paying that company for access to the outside world, right? You're paying for the roads in your residential neighborhood. And so the idea is that it would be sort of terrible if they said, well, but if you want to use Amazon, or if you want to use YouTube, or if you want to use TikTok or whatever, you're going to have to pay extra. Or what they're doing more likely is saying, TikTok, if you want to be able to deliver content to this person, even though they're paying us for the roads, you're going to have to pay us as well. That's the idea of net neutrality. Should the ISPs be allowed to do whatever they want to do with their property? After all, you have a choice of ISP, or do you, right? There's not very many choices. Or, should there be this principle of net neutrality? There are several videos that I have talking about net neutrality, talking about some of the changes that have happened recently with net neutrality. And so that's the idea. Take a look at it. Is this a good principle? Is this not a good principle? Is this something that you think should be maintained, or that you think should not be maintained? One of the best examples is very funny, but unfortunately also a little bit vulgar. It's John Oliver's This Week Tonight. There's a couple sources there. Those are optional. You can look at the other sources that are not do not use foul language. But if foul language does not bother you, he has a couple videos that have a very succinct explanation of both what net neutrality is, and then another one that was made years later that really talks about the situation now. Anyway, so that's the discussion, net neutrality. Your lab this week is Word Lab 2. Word Lab 2 is, do you see why I have to edit these things, by the way? That was way too long. Word Lab 2 is all about like formatting pictures, making your documents look the way you want, and also using styles. Styles is something that is probably underrated. You just change your font size and stuff. You don't really use the styles, feature where you have sort of preset styles for different types of text, headers and body paragraphs and stuff like that. I will throw out, because this is something that would probably get missed if you're just doing the labs and not really like doing any of the clicking on the stuff to do the reading inside of my IT lab, which I'm sure you're not, and that's okay. I would do the same thing. That's why I'm here to tell you. The added advantage of styles is that when a document is formatted using styles, it becomes much more likely to be ADA compliant. So the American Disabilities Act, the idea is for people who have vision impairment, who have to use screen readers, those Word documents, when formatted using styles, work much better with those technologies in order to give a better experience to people with a disability. Now, why is this important? Well, one, it's important because you're a decent human being who cares about people with vision impairment. The other side is, if you happen to work for an organization that receives money from the federal government, you have to comply with ADA. And that means that documents that you share online or with clients, they should be ADA compatible. And so it's a small feature of styles. You may think of it as just a convenience, but it does actually really help format your documents in a way that makes them more universal. So anyway, so we got that. Then some questions that have come up. One is, I've noticed my grades for my IT lab are blank in Canvas. I think I mentioned this somewhere else in another video, maybe I didn't, but I have to manually move those over. So generally I wait until a lab effectively disappears, or lab exam, or any of the things we do in my IT lab. I wait for it to end, which means it's no longer available. So after its 1 week grace period, and then I move all the grades over. That prevents me from missing a grade if somebody does something at the last minute. So yes, you don't see anything in Canvas, don't worry about it. I will move them over from my IT lab as they expire. But the other thing is, people were having a lot of issues with my IT lab, specifically with just connecting, especially that first week, and even going into the second week. It seems like a lot of people have solved their problems. Firefox turns out to be the champion browser this semester. I don't know how this is different than last semester. The product has not changed. So maybe something in the browser changed? I don't know, but Chrome used to be the go-to. People are having a lot of luck with Firefox. So if you're still having problems logging in and seeing the content, switch over to Firefox. I will say, just like not the actual simulations, but just loading the list in my IT lab seems to be taking a lot longer than it used to, even with blazing fast internet speeds. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But regardless, be a little patient with it just to get the list up. The simulations seem to run just fine, and switch to Firefox if you're having issues with Chrome. All that being said, because of all those connectivity issues, I don't really want to, you probably noticed that right now, the Windows 10 lab, our first lab from week 1, should be gone. You should not have access to it anymore because it's past its 1 week grace period. I'm gonna actually leave it up another week. So it will disappear at the same time as Word Lab 1. So this upcoming Monday, right at the end of week 3, both of those labs will go away. But I wanted to give you an extra week with Windows 10 just because I know that, yeah, there were some connection issues the first week, and I don't want that to be the problem causing you from not succeeding. So anyway, so needless to say, that grade will not be moved over in Canvas for another week. So don't expect to see it this week because you got some extra time. I'll move it over along with Word Lab 1 next week. All right, so that being said, that's your week. Yeah, all about the internet, take the quiz, discussion on net neutrality, and your lab on continuing on Word, talking about formatting stuff. All right, if you have any questions, email me, or better yet, send a message through Canvas, and then I will see you online.